Can you imagine? A black woman walks into a clinic for a routine pregnancy checkup. Instead of care, she's met with racist insults, falsely accused of stealing, and dragged out like a criminal. Unaware that her husband, a high-ranking federal civil rights director, is on his way to bring down everyone involved. Whether you're expecting a child, praying to have one someday, or simply someone who wishes good things for others, this space is for you. If this message touches your heart in any way, go ahead and give the video a like. Leave a comment if you're on the journey to parenthood, supporting someone who is, or just sending love their way. And don't forget to subscribe. This is a space for everyday people to connect, share, and grow together. Because sometimes, the smallest lives bring out the biggest hearts. It was a beautiful Tuesday morning in Phoenix. The sun painted the sky golden, and life moved at its usual pace around the city. But at the corner of Central Avenue and McDowell Road stood something that looked more like a palace than a medical clinic. Phoenix Premier Women's Center rose from the sidewalk like a monument to wealth. Glass walls sparkled in the sunlight. Everything about it screamed money and exclusivity. Keisha Washington stood outside the main entrance, one hand resting on her round belly, the other clutching her worn purse. 6 months pregnant and glowing with that special light expectant mothers have. She wore a simple blue dress that fit her perfectly. Her beautiful dark skin caught the morning light, but it also drew cold stares from the white couples walking past. She took a deep breath, the kind you take when you're trying to stay calm. "Okay, baby," she whispered to her unborn child, rubbing her stomach gently. "Let's get this checkup done. Daddy will be here soon." Her voice was steady, but her eyes kept checking the time. 10:17 a.m. Marcus was supposed to meet her by 10:30. He'd gotten called to an emergency at the federal courthouse that morning, but promised he'd rush over. And Marcus always kept his promises. Still, it stung. This was supposed to be their first 4D ultrasound, their first real look at their baby. Now she was walking into this intimidating place alone. The automatic doors opened with a soft whoosh. Inside, everything was marble and leather, with flower arrangements that looked too perfect to be real. The silence felt heavy, like it was pressing down on her. A young blonde receptionist sat behind the desk. When Keisha approached, the woman barely looked up. "Good morning," Keisha said politely. "I'm Keisha Washington. I have a 10:30 appointment with Dr. Mitchell." The receptionist finally looked at her, really looked, and something cold flashed in her eyes. She typed slowly on her keyboard, taking her time. "You're here for Dr. Rebecca Mitchell?" she asked, like she couldn't believe it. "Yes," Keisha said, her smile starting to fade. "I scheduled it 2 weeks ago and confirmed last night." The woman slid a clipboard across the desk with all the warmth of handing over a parking ticket. "Fill this out." As Keisha took a seat, she felt eyes on her. Women with designer handbags whispered and stared. One clutched her purse tighter when Keisha looked her way. An older white man shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze completely. "This is about the baby," she reminded herself. "You're here for your child." But every second Marcus wasn't beside her, she felt more exposed in this cold, unwelcoming place. When her name was called, the nurse didn't smile. She just stood there looking Keisha up and down like she was inspecting damaged goods. They walked down a hallway lined with pictures of white mothers holding their babies. Keisha wondered if anyone who looked like her had ever been featured in those perfect portraits. Room 7A smelled like disinfectant trying to hide something rotten. The nurse pointed to the examination table and left without a word. Keisha sat carefully, smoothing her dress, checking the time again. 10:43. Marcus was running late. Then the door opened. Dr. Rebecca Mitchell walked in, blonde hair pulled back severely, cold blue eyes, white coat pristine. She didn't greet Keisha, didn't smile, just stared with obvious disgust. "So you're Keisha Washington," she said finally, her voice dripping with contempt. Keisha straightened her shoulders. "Yes. Good morning. I believe we're doing the 4D ultrasound today." Dr. Mitchell's eyes traveled up and down Keisha's body. Not like a doctor examining a patient, but like someone judging a piece of trash. "You came alone," she said flatly. "My husband had an emergency at work. He's on his way." A cruel smile twisted the doctor's lips. "Of course he is." She turned away, shuffling papers dramatically. Then her voice turned sharp and vicious. "Let me guess, you don't even know who the father is. Or maybe he got tired of the responsibility this morning." Typical. Keisha's breath caught. "Excuse me?" The doctor stepped closer, her voice becoming a venomous whisper. "Look, I don't know what kind of place you think this is, Miss Washington. This isn't some public clinic. This is a specialized facility for expectant mothers who actually care about their health and their children's future. Not women who show up alone looking like they just rolled off the bus." Keisha stood up slowly, her hands shaking with rage. "I scheduled this appointment. I confirmed it. I came here respectfully, Dash." "You people are always respectful when you want something," Dr. Mitchell hissed. "Then you bring drama and disruption. Not today. Not in my facility." Keisha's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. "I'm leaving. I don't have to listen to this." "Oh, you're not going anywhere yet." The doctor's smile turned predatory. She glanced at the counter. "I'm missing something. My watch Rolex, platinum band. I left it right here this morning." Her eyes locked on Keisha, and now it's gone. The blood drained from Keisha's face. "I didn't take anything. I've had enough charity cases walk in here and walk out with more than they came in with." Dr. Mitchell snapped. "Security is already on their way. Don't make this worse than it has to be." Before Keisha could respond, the doctor was gone, leaving her alone with the sound of approaching footsteps in the hallway. 2 security guards entered, both white, both wearing the same cold expression. The older one carried a clipboard. The younger one chewed gum like he was bored. "Miss Washington," the older guard said in a rehearsed tone, "we've had a report of missing property. Dr. Mitchell has identified you as a person of interest. You need to come with us." "I haven't taken anything," Keisha said, her voice trembling. "This is a mistake. We'll sort it out downstairs," the younger one cut in, already moving toward her. "You can explain in the security office." "I'm pregnant," she said desperately. "I don't feel safe being escorted like this. I want to call my husband, Dash." "You'll have your chance after we're done," the older guard muttered. They led her through back corridors she'd never seen, past staff doors and supply closets, through areas that smelled of bleach and bureaucracy. Finally, they reached a gray door with no nameplate. Inside was a small, dimly lit room with a metal desk, filing cabinets, and monitors showing grainy security footage. The fluorescent light above flickered and buzzed like an angry insect. "Sit," the younger guard ordered, pointing to a plastic chair bolted to the floor. Keisha sat slowly, her hands protectively covering her belly. "Please, I need to call my husband." "Phone," the guard barked, holding out his hand. She reluctantly handed over her cell phone. He turned it off and locked it in a desk drawer. "You can't just take my phone," she protested. "You're not under arrest," the older guard said with practiced calm. "But you are being detained for investigation." "Detained for what? Where's your proof?" "I didn't go near her desk." "Save the performance," the younger one sneered. "You want sympathy? You're in the wrong place." Minutes crawled by like hours. They weren't questioning her, weren't searching, just keeping her there, powerless and isolated, because they could. Keisha stared at the blank wall, imagining Marcus walking through the clinic's front door at that very moment. She pictured him asking for her, the receptionist's nervous stalling, and the slow realization that would cross his face when he figured out where she was. Then she imagined what would happen next. At the front desk of Phoenix Premier Women's Center, Marcus Washington stepped through the glass doors like a force of nature. Tall and commanding in his tailored navy suit, the gold Department of Justice badge on his lapel caught the light. His dark skin and powerful presence drew every eye in the waiting room. He approached the desk with measured steps, his deep voice cutting through the sterile silence. "Good morning. I'm looking for Keisha Washington. She had a 10:30 appointment with Dr. Mitchell. I'm her husband." The same blonde receptionist looked up, her automatic smile freezing when she met his eyes. Something about his calm intensity made her nervous. One moment, sir." She typed frantically, then squinted at her screen. "It says she's not in the exam room anymore. Where is she?" The question came quiet and level, but with unmistakable authority. Security was called about a situation. "I think she's downstairs in the security office." There was some kind of misunderstanding. "What situation?" His voice was firmer now, still professional but clearly commanding. She opened and closed her mouth like a fish. "I think Dr. Mitchell. There was an issue. I need to see her now." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "Take me there, or get someone who will." The receptionist stood up, her face pale. "I'll get the floor manager." "No need." Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather wallet. He opened it with practiced precision, revealing a federal ID badge with the seal of the United States Department of Justice and his full title: Senior Deputy Director, Civil Rights Division. The woman's breath caught. Marcus let her see it for exactly 3 seconds, then closed it. "Where is the security office?" "Down the hall, past the staff elevator. First door on the left," she stammered. Without another word, Marcus walked away, his stride sharp and unwavering. His hands were clenched at his sides, but he didn't rush. The tension in his shoulders made it clear that someone was about to learn they had made a terrible mistake. Marcus pushed open the security office door to find Keisha sitting rigidly in that plastic chair, her hands protectively covering her belly. Her expression mixed fear with barely controlled fury. 2 guards stood nearby, startled by the intrusion. "Can we help you?" the older guard asked. "Yes," Marcus said, his voice deadly calm. "You can help by standing down and explaining why you have illegally detained my wife without due cause, without counsel, and without access to her personal property." The guards froze. Keisha's head snapped toward him, relief flooding her face. "Marcus!" He moved to her side, resting a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'm here. It's over now." Then he turned back to the guards, his voice like steel wrapped in silk. "I want the name of whoever ordered this detention, the report that authorized it, and access to every second of surveillance footage involving my wife." Immediately, the younger guard stepped back. The older one hesitated. "Look, we were just following protocol. You're not trained in constitutional law." "I am." Marcus's interruption was ice cold. "And you violated several laws. Get me that footage before I call the Attorney General." The room went silent except for the buzzing fluorescent light. The older guard, sweating now, turned to the monitor console and began pulling up security footage. "There," Marcus said, pointing at the screen. "Play it from when my wife entered the exam room." The footage showed everything. Keisha entering politely, never touching anything but the doorknob and chair. Dr. Mitchell leaving at 10:52, the watch clearly visible on the counter. A cleaning person entering briefly, leaving the watch untouched. The timestamp showed the watch was still there when the camera cut out during shift change. "Where's the rest?" Marcus demanded. That's when the cleaning crew changes over," the guard admitted. "There's a blind spot in the handoff." "Convenient." Marcus's voice could have cut glass. He retrieved Keisha's phone from the drawer and handed it back to her gently. Then he addressed the guards again. "Detaining my wife without due process is a civil rights violation. denying her medical care while pregnant borders on endangerment. I'm filing formal complaints with the DOJ, and a public incident report will go to the state licensing board before end of business today. Neither guard responded. The weight of federal retaliation hung in the room like a thunderstorm. Keisha stood slowly, no longer shaky but tall and strong, lifted by the protection she'd been denied until that moment. "I want to go upstairs," she said softly but firmly. "I want to see that doctor again." Marcus nodded once. "Let's go." The elevator opened to the clinic's executive floor, and for the first time that morning, every eye in the hallway stared. Not because of Keisha, but because of the federal authority walking beside her. A nervous administrator waited outside a glass conference room. "Mr. and Mrs. Washington, Dr. Mitchell is inside. We've convened an emergency ethics board review." Inside, 3 board members sat at one end of a long table. 2 men, 1 woman, all visibly uncomfortable. Dr. Mitchell sat at the far end, arms crossed, still trying to look defiant despite the fear in her eyes. Marcus placed a stack of typed, signed documents on the table. "My wife was falsely accused of theft, illegally detained, denied communication, and humiliated while under medical care. We have footage proving no theft occurred. We also have testimony of racially charged comments made by your doctor." Dr. Mitchell scoffed. "This is ridiculous. I followed protocol dash." "You followed prejudice," Marcus cut in coldly. "Based solely on my wife's appearance, not her behavior or any facts." Keisha spoke then, her voice clear and strong. "You looked at me and saw something disposable. You didn't see a teacher, a wife, an expectant mother. You didn't even see a person. You saw a problem to be dealt with." "That's not how it happened," Dr. Mitchell protested weakly. "You told me I was probably abandoned, that I looked like I came from a bus station. You called me a thief before you ever treated me like a human being." Keisha's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Silence filled the room. One board member shifted uncomfortably. Marcus stepped forward. "Dr. Mitchell's actions aren't just unethical. They're actionable. We're pursuing federal civil rights litigation. But more than that, we want transparency. A written public apology, institutional reform, mandatory anti-bias training, and her immediate suspension." The board chair's voice cracked. "We'll begin proceedings immediately." Dr. Mitchell stood abruptly, knocking her chair over, and stormed out without a word. No one stopped her. 2 weeks later, the clinic released a formal statement acknowledging the incident. Dr. Mitchell was placed on indefinite leave. A full review of patient rights was initiated. But Keisha didn't stop there. She stood at a podium outside the same clinic, flanked by Marcus and local civil rights advocates. Reporters gathered, microphones pointed forward. She spoke calmly, but with unmistakable power. "This isn't just about me. It's about every black woman who walks into a room and is assumed to be less. It's about the systems that let those assumptions go unchecked. And it's about saying loudly that we deserve better." She paused, one hand resting on her growing belly. "We will not be quiet. We will not be afraid. We will not disappear just to make you comfortable." The crowd didn't just applaud. They responded with a weight of shared understanding, a silent thunder of agreement. Marcus stood beside her, pride etched into every line of his face. As the Arizona sun broke through the clouds overhead, Keisha looked down at her belly, at the life growing inside her, and smiled. Not because everything was fixed, but because something had finally started to change. And sometimes, that's exactly where justice begins. Like and share this story to spread awareness about dignity, respect, and the power of standing up for what's right. Every voice matters in the fight for equality.